I got a special request from Julie, who wanted to see a tutorial for this fish design. You can see it's like my Cheat Chainmaille, and you're going to make a head and then this lovely chainmail, which you can really create how you want. You can put as many jump rings in as you want, and it flows so beautifully and really moves well for this fish design, but I use it in a lot of designs. So you need a bead for the eye. I'm working at the end of a spool of 0.8 millimeter. So I thread on the bead, create a sort of bit of a circle with the end, and then push the bead as far as I can into that sort of part circle, and then bring the wire around the bead to encapsulate it, and then begin creating a spiral around it. So keep that, you don't have to do a tight spiral, but if you find it easy to make a tight spiral and then open it up, that's fine. So this is for the eye of the fish, so you can make this as big as you want or as small as you want. And now curve the wire a little bit, because that's going to be the tip of the head of the fish, so you want it as sort of a point. So put your needle nose pliers right to get that really pointy tip, and then curve the other side a little bit, because you don't want it too straight like a triangle. And then bend the wire back to a right angle just under the eye. You want to leave a little gap under the eye, and create a circle that sits at the edge of that frame. So you're holding your round nose pliers there, and then keeping that circle sitting, and then the wire goes out straight in a line. Now place the pliers back on the same spot to create the second circle, and again lots and lots of little manipulations to get the same circle, another circle rather, and then all these circles, you want 3 of them to be on the same line, so sort of keeping the wire straight. So there's a row of 3 circles. Now grip the wire in there, because you're going to bring it back up towards the eye, and then cut it off, leaving enough so you've got enough to sort of make a join on the edge of the frame. And that's roughly how you make the fish head. I mean, if you wanted to make a smaller fish, you could just put 2 circles for the chainmail to hang off. Don't forget, you can make this any size with any gauge wire. So I'm just going to trim a little bit off. I've got a little bit too much because I don't want a big bulky secure there. So make a little hook with the end, push it into the side of the frame by the eye, and then you just squidge it down to secure and make sure it's connected, because you want that as neat as possible, because that's where the, you'll see it all. And then spend a bit of time manipulating the edge of the frame so it's the shape that you want. And you can hammer the edge just very, very slightly. You've got to obviously be very careful about hitting that bead. You don't want to hit that. So I would do this very, very carefully, but I'm not going to do much to mine. You can see here how this one is. So the next is the tail. So I'm going to make a tail. We're working from the end of the spool again, 0.8 mil. I'm curving it slightly because I want sort of a curve to the tail. And I'm going to go to the length that I want, bring it back and to form another curve, and then bend it back again like a sort of a curvy W. Double up that doubled piece where it's bent back. Another point for the second point of the sort of W shape. I mean, this can be whatever size you want it to be. It doesn't have to be as big as this, but you make it the size that you want. So that's the shape you want for the tail, and you leave a bit more on one end because you're going to make a link at that end. So you can get pliers like this that are half round, and these half round pliers, I have these for ring making, help just curve the wire a little bit. You see, when you place that half round into or onto the sides and sort of munch away at the edges, you'll see it sort of helps with the curving of the wire edges or the frame. But if you don't have these, you can just do this with your fingers. So don't feel you need to, buy these half round pliers, but they're quite useful if you like ring making in particular, or creating things with curved edges. Otherwise, just, work on the shaping and just spend a bit of time, making sure it's how you want it. And once you've got the shape you like, you bring the two ends to where you want it to join, which will be where the doubled end is at the center, and then centralize your long piece and wrap the shorter end around that stem to secure it as one unit. So just wrap it round once or twice and then cut off any excess. You don't want it too bulky at that point. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You have a bit of, I don't know, it can be a bit wonky because, the fish is possibly swimming. You want a bit of shaping in there. So don't feel it has to be a perfect piece. So I do hammer just the edges, not the center piece, to make it sort of more solid, work hardened, and also it flattens and makes and spreads the wire to make it look a bit more substantial. So that definitely helps reinforce it as the tail. So again, the hammering will move the piece around, so remanipulate it until you're happy. So that's at the end. Now we're going to weave a little bit of thin wire. I've actually got some 0.3 mil, but if you've got whatever you've got to hand, and this can be coloured wire, and also you don't have to just put wires in, you could weave beads into the tail. Remember, all this is so subjective, but I'm just going to put a few thin wires in my tail so that it's not so plain. I mean, you could leave it plain, because don't forget, when you're wearing it, it's against a backdrop. It's against the background maybe of a blouse, or if you're making it as a decoration, it's against the backdrop of whatever you're putting it against. So hold it in place at the tip before you bend the wire back, because you'll find otherwise the wires just slip. This very fine threaded wire, I mean, it's just so fine, it will stay where you want it because it's so fine. So just do a few little weaves in from the tip to the top, the tip of the tail, and then grip it there so it doesn't slide out of the tip. Then bring it back up, wind it round against the wrapped top end of the stem, and then back. And just do this with how much ever wire you've got, twice or three times, whatever you can fit. And as I say, it will want to slip out of that tip, but you just grip it, make it do what you want. And then use up the end of the wire and secure it so that it's held at the top. So that's basically just a sort of like a filler. Now I'm just going to add a bead to the top of the tail, because it just gives it another little bit of colour. You don't have to do this again. This is just me wanting to inject a bit more detail and colour into my piece. So I'm just going to cut off, leaving enough to make a link, and create a top link at the top of my bead. So there's the link that I will join it eventually to the body. And if these wires are a little bit loose, don't forget to give little kinks with the tips of your chain nose or round nose, and that just creates a bit of movement and interest. So there's the head and the tail of your fish. And now we're going to make the cheat chainmaille, as I call it, the chainmaille body. So this is my cheat way of doing chainmaille. I'm basically going to make just rows of loops, and I'm starting with 3 circles in a row because that's going to be connected to the 3 circles from the head of the fish. So hold the wire and you can see how you go round the pliers. You try to keep the shape of the circle roughly at the same spot on the pliers so that they're, you know, roughly the same size loops. If you've got little step round nose pliers, those work very well because you've always got the same shape, size, link when you're making it. But you can do this as you can see me do it. And I'm not interested in making things too perfect. So, you know, my links are not all the same. But I think that gives a nice sort of feel to a handmade piece, that it's not mass-produced in a factory by a machine. So I'm doing another one with 3 rows. And then I'm going to do one with 4 rows because that will increase the sort of where the shape of the body of the fish, it'll make it a bit wider. So now I'm going to do 4 circles in a row. So that's 2. You can see every time I make a circle, I pull the wire straight so that all these circles are on the same straight line. They're just sort of sitting on the same straight line. So there's my 4 one. I think I'll do another one of those. You can make this fish as long as you want. Here we go. I've done 2 3s and 2 4s and 1 2 rings. So this is what I have done for the body. And you can see it gives you that sort of shape that it sort of increases in the middle and then tapers out at the end. And then you need to make some jump rings. I've made some smaller jump rings and some bigger jump rings. The smaller ones are roughly the same size as my circular links on the rows, and these are going to connect the sides of these of the fish together. And these were made on my coiling gizmo, but if you don't have a coiling gizmo, you can create them on your pliers. So always open your ring sideways. As you know, I've got tutorials on making jump rings. And you go to the last connector on the head of the fish, take the next one up, link it in, and then you're going to close each ring like that. So first of all, you're going to connect all the rings, you know, these rows of rings together to make the body. So this is, you know, all quite laborious, but it's a lot quicker than real chainmail. So there we go, open it sideways, link in the next outer circle to a jump ring. So that's my 3 bar. Now I'm going to go to a 4 bar. So that's really the same thing. Always go to the outer rings to link on. And you'll also notice that I put the bars of, or the rows of links, they're all facing the same way. So there's one of the 4 bar. So again, to the outer. And it slowly all comes together and forms this sort of chainmail effect, or it forms the body really of the fish. So you just carry on, it's very therapeutic, linking everything together. And then all of my pieces with this technique is really so subjective to how many more links you want to add. And you can see in the silver and blue fish that I made initially, I've made some blue jump rings to add to it. So I'm keeping this one all gold because I'm calling it a goldfish. But I could add silver, I could add blue, I could add other coloured wires to it. You see how it's all joining together at just on the sides. And you carry on doing that all the way down. Now I've doubled up those outer rings. So I've used two. Once I've done the one, then I've gone back and added another one. In fact, I've got one more too. Just realised I've left, oh no, it's not that one. I've left one out at the top. So that's my last one for the sides. So just put two going down the edges, two jump rings going down the edges. That gives it a bit more body, makes it look a bit richer and fuller. And then we can connect the tail by using two more jump rings that sit at the end of the, it's just two links at the end there. So I'm just putting those two links on. And they hang down. And then we'll connect the tail. So I've got two rings hanging down from the two circle bar. Then I'm going to open the top link of the tail and feed it into those two jump rings so that it can be suspended at the very end, and then I just close that up. So now we could finish there if we want, but I'm going to add a few more jump rings. Now these jump rings that go in the middle of the fish need to be a little bit bigger because they've got to reach from the the one link to the other. So this is a slightly bigger jump ring than the ones I used down the edges. But you'll just have to experiment and find out for yourself, because if your jump ring isn't big enough, it basically won't flow. So I've put them in between. So I just carry on filling up as many areas as I can by linking one of those rows to another of those rows, and that just makes the body look fuller. So there's no method or rules to this. It's completely up to you. You just keep looking at it and saying, do I want a few more in there? And also you might find that you can't fit any more in there. So that will determine whether you can or not. You could also put jump rings with little seed beads on to create a little bit more texture. I've done that before, and that adds colour and texture. So there's so many extra little variations that you can do to this technique of creating this chainmail effect. And every time I make a piece, I will determine whether I want it there or not. So for this, I think it should be just plain gold, as I called it, a goldfish. But you can see it's just a series of more links going in between those circular rows of or bars that I've made. And it just gives a filler and gives a better effect to the whole piece. So you carry on when you've made yours. As I say, you can finish at any point, and it's really up to you. See, that gives it a bit more body. And it gives a nice flow. The fish will swim better. And that's it, really. You can see, just add a chain and you've got your fish. So I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, Julie, and you get to make one for yourself. Do show me a picture, and I hope other people that have watched this have also enjoyed the project. And please do subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye.